Yuta Okotsu is probably the most cursed character in the entirety of Jujutsu Kaisen, and in today's video, I want to analyze the turning point of his character, which is the Sendai Colony battle in the Culling Games, where Yuta truly became the second strongest hero, only behind Gojo Satoru. To set the stage for this battle, in Sendai City, there was four main pillars of power controlling the city. This was the most contested part of the entire Culling Games, and this colony was way more brutal than all the other ones we see in the manga. The main combatants of this colony were Dhruv Lakdawala, an incarnated sorcerer who is over 2,000 years old. This guy alone is so powerful that it is said he took over Japan in the Civil War of Wa by himself using an army of self-sufficient Shikigami. The next combatant we have in this fight is Ryu Ishigori, or as I like to call him, Josuke, another incarnated sorcerer who's around 400 years old. He is said to have the highest curse energy output in all of the Culling Games, which is an insane feat, and he uses a cannon that actually shoots out of his hair. It's kind of crazy, but we'll get into it later. The next combatant is Uro, who, other than having a very powerful curse technique, made me very impressed with her sky manipulation technique. She's also an incarnated sorcerer who is over 1,000 years old, who had a pact with Kenjaku to return for the Culling Games, and she was also the leader of the Sun, Moon, and Star Squad, which is a group of assassins affiliated with the Fujiwara clan. The final of the big four combatants is the cursed spirit Kururoshi. Resembling a cockroach, this cursed spirit was released by Kenjaku and is registered as a special grade. These four combatants are some of the strongest characters in the Culling Games, and they are all located in the same barrier and in the same city. Unfortunately for these poor souls, one of JJK's most powerful heroes has shown up to Sendai with a vengeance. Yuta was placed within this colony in hopes to gather a bunch of points. Yuta begins this campaign by slaughtering Dhruv. This guy was so powerful and controlling so many Shikigami that it has caused a stalemate within the city, and when Yuta shows up, he immediately wipes him out. Ryu and Uro take notice of this immediately because of the stalemate, and Ryu finds Yuta's name listed in the players who have received points in the last minute, meaning that he has eliminated someone. Uro and Ryu speculate that Kururoshi, who I'm just going to call the cockroach spirit since I'm probably messing his name up, they speculate that he's going to make a move now that Dhruv is gone. At this point, being the hero he is, Yuta had already saved a large group of civilians and were huddling them into a nearby stadium for safety. This is when a massive swarm of flesh-eating cockroaches rushes the crowd of people. A man was swarmed by the roaches, and Yuta attempts to save him. He's unfortunately ripped apart as Yuta instructs Rika to barricade the stadium, saving the other civilians. The cockroach cursed spirit then appears, who was awoken after the death of Dhruv, who was a hard counter to him. The cockroach decides to devour Yuta as he interfered with his endless appetite. Yuta decides he needs to eliminate players and cursed spirits who have abilities that indiscriminately attack humans. Yuta realizes how important it is to not allow players like this to escape the barrier. Yuta takes a moment to note how tired everyone is after Shibuya, and he vows to kill Kenjaku himself, sparing Gojo from having to kill his best friend again. The cockroach then pulls out the Fester Lifeblade, which is a cursed weapon, and Yuta easily removes the cockroach's arm with the weapon and begins beating it relentlessly. Yuta decides he must beat the spirit without Rika and without showing that he can use RCT, since he's being watched by other players with high scores. The spirit then spawns Shikigami who begin biting and attacking Yuta, and while he is distracted with these Shikigami, the cockroach rushes Yuta with his sword, and we get a nasty panel of Yuta's shoulder being ripped apart by bugs. This is so gross, but Yuta's still a goat for handling this. After Yuta has been hit by the sword and attacked by bugs, he is down on the ground, and just as it looks like it's over, the cockroach bends over Yuta, about to devour him, and we get the most savage moment we've seen a hero have so far in this story. Yuta grabs a hold of the cursed spirit's face and bites onto its mouth. Yuta was sending RCT into the cursed spirit's mouth through a kiss and annihilated the spirit, just absolutely destroying it, exploding its guts all over the place. Although he had won this fight, Ryu and Uro both took notice that Yuta can use reverse curse technique, which is a big letdown for Yuta. As Yuta regains his composure, Uro wastes no time and uses her sky manipulation to whisper directly into Yuta's ear, reverse curse technique. Uro then sends Yuta flying as he tries to comprehend what the hell just happened to him. Uro starts to throw hands with Yuta while actively distorting and twisting his body with her technique. Yuta takes note that the ability will twist and bend the subjects involved, but no harm will come up from this specifically. She then explains her technique to him and how it involves turning the sky into a surface. She essentially can grab the sky and space itself and fold and twist it like it's paper or maybe a sheet. Yuta takes a moment to ask Uro why she's taking a part in these dangerous battles. She gets angry and mentions, "To us, it's like coming back from hell," when referring to being reincarnated. She talks about wanting to gather as many points as possible because she does not know what Kenjaku's plan. The regret she held in her former life carries forward into the modern age. Yuta says, "Don't you have any friends or a lover?" "Damn, Yuta, you should chill out a little bit. She's gonna spaz on you, man." Before Uro can do anything about it, Ryu's granite blast, a massive beam of curse energy, comes right in between them and splits them up. This is basically a Kamehameha in my eyes. This blast also comes out of his hair, which is really ridiculous and kind of strange, but it makes his character more badass, I guess. Yuta immediately begins to rush Ryu at full speed, hauling ass while dodging the second granite blast. Yuta surprises Ryu on the rooftop, and they begin hand-to-hand combat. Ryu is extremely confident and is happy to have a worthy challenger finally. Ryu then takes a moment to light a cigarette, and I think this is kind of funny because it's literally the middle of the fight. They just stop and he lights a cigarette, which is badass, but also, they were just punching each other. But anyways, Ryu takes a second to explain to Yuta how he has zero regrets about his life. He says he fought staunch men, met good women, but explains his vague hunger that kept him wanting more. "But in my life, there was no dessert," he says, as he swings at Yuta and they begin to battle again. Yuta is caught off guard by one of Ryu's blasts and is sent hurtling into the air. He wastes no time showing off his speed, keeping up with Yuta, and he fires another blast. Yuta shows off another insane feat as he just blocks the blast with his bare hands, which is just crazy. While Yuta is midair, Uro sneaks up behind him and uses her thin icebreaker attack, which targets the surface itself and sends Yuta flying into the ground. Ryu is pissed about her intervening in their fight and screams, "You disgusting woman," as he aims his granite blast towards her, which she sends right back at him using her sky manipulation. Yuta has been hit by two extremely powerful attacks, and his curse energy is reaching its limit. He takes in all of his options, but comes to one conclusion. He needs Rika in order to end this fight. He puts the ring on and tells Rika to come. Rika arrives to the fight fully manifested, asking Yuta which curse tool he'd like to use. Rika is basically a mobile storage unit at this point, carrying all sorts of cursed weapons for his disposal. It is then explained that Yuta has exactly 5 minutes to use his copied techniques and have access to Rika's curse energy. This kind of explains why people are a little worried after 5 minutes runs up when Yuta is using Kenjaku's curse technique. We then see Rika rush Uro as we see Yuta use Inumaki's curse speech to freeze her midair. Yuta and Rika sandwich Uro and give her the Jotaro special. They're just absolutely pounding her. They're just beating her up real bad. Ryu then takes advantage of this and shoots a granite blast at the group. Rika simply deflects it with her hand, kind of like Yuta did earlier. She then blitzes Ryu, landing a nasty punch to his face. Although he counters Rika and launches her into a nearby building, I forgot to mention that Yuta does have some sort of arm attachment here, which is a cursed weapon, I assume. It's really, really cool looking. I don't know exactly what it's called, but it does look absolutely sick on Yuta. Uro then notices that Yuta is starting to use some smaller Shikigami that resemble Rika, and they're moving in a circle, kind of like Drew's Shikigami. They can kind of form a domain, and they're starting to do this. At this point, Uro becomes aware that Yuta's technique is to copy or mimic others. She can see because she knows and is familiar with Drew's technique, and she comes to this conclusion. The three fighters then land on a roof where we get a three-way domain expansion, and side note, this three-way panel is probably one of my favorite in JJK. I love when we get these. We got this with Yuji, Toto, and Mahito, and then also with Gojo, Maharaga, and Sukuna. So just an awesome panel, one of my favorites for sure. So we know that when domains clash, the sure hit effects are going to cancel each other out. Along with this detail, Uro and Ryu both decide they need to keep Rika outside of the barrier of their domains. Although in a three-way domain expansion, the barrier control becomes extremely ineffective, and the barriers in this case end up just completely dissolving and breaking. So we don't even get to see the inside of their domains, which is unfortunate, but maybe we'll see in the anime, I don't know. So the cockroach spirit returns with its energy being passed on to its children after the original one's death. It reappears and begins to attack Uro. Yuta quickly jumps her when he notices this because she has a bad matchup against the cockroach. Technique burnout is occurring after the domain clash, making Uro's sky manipulation pretty much unusable. Uro's arm is also severed by the cockroach spirit, and Rika consumes this arm. So this kind of shows how Yuta has to have Rika consume a part of another sorcerer in order for them to use the technique. I think that this probably happened to Kenjaku. Ryu is shown not to be impacted by the domain and retains the same curse energy as before, so he blasts Uro and the cockroach. Yuta dispatches the cockroach. I find this really funny because the child of the original cockroach showed up just to die immediately, pretty much. So Yuta begins walking menacingly towards Ryu. The table is set, Okotsu, says Ryu as they prepare their attacks. Ryu and Yuta lock beams of curse energy together, as Yuta launches himself towards Ryu and uses Uro's sky manipulation technique to pull him closer. Yuta hits him with a thin icebreaker right as his 5 minutes expire. Rika punches Ryu in the ground, and he desperately attacks. Ryu's completely amped up and wants Yuta to continue this fight as long as they can. They continue locking beams together, they continue fist fighting. This is just a savage fight. I think it's going to be animated absolutely beautifully once, it comes out. But this is just a brutal fight. Yuta and Ryu are perfect matches for each other. I mean, obviously Yuta is a little stronger, but Ryu is a very, very talented sorcerer here and is giving it his all. In a somewhat of a Hail Mary attempt, Ryu shoots a granite blast straight into the air, and Yuta directs it using his sky manipulation straight back to the source. Ryu is hit by it and is utterly defeated, although in his defeated state, he thanks Yuta for fulfilling him finally. Yuta spends some time after the fight with Ryu on the rooftop, and just kind of sits there with him. And Ryu questions why Yuta would even spare sorcerers like him and Uro who would fight to the death. Yuta credits his friends for giving him that strength and walks away with 200 additional points. In my opinion, this is the best fight of the Culling games and shows why Yuta is the second strongest behind Gojo. We learn a lot about Yuta here, mainly about his mimic and copy technique. We kind of knew he had this in the first place, but we really get to see it shown off here. I mean, we see him real time eat Uro's arm, or I guess Rika eats the arm, and then he's able to use that technique almost immediately after, which is really cool to see how that's used. This is also the fight where we get teased that Yuta does have a domain. Obviously in the future we figure out what this domain is, but at this point in the story this shows he does have a domain and the capability to use it. The dynamic of this fight in general was also just super interesting, seeing these reincarnated sorcerers out there fighting each other along with a pretty powerful curse spirit, and they all have such unique abilities that kind of clash with each other, and it was just kind of like a game of chess throughout this whole fight. I just couldn't get enough of this fight when I was initially reading it, and going back and rereading it for this video was really awesome, and I think cements it as the turning point for Yuta himself, and also I think it's just going to make an amazing fight in the anime. This fight really opened my eyes up to how much of a powerhouse Yuta is, and I think anyone who reads this is just so impressed by Yuta that, your stakes and your opinion of him just go way up. And the stakes are high right now, obviously, with Yuta going up against Sukuna, but I really do believe in him. I hope he can pull it off, and if this fight shows anything, he can overcome any adversity that comes his way. I'm super excited for this fight in the future being animated, but let me know what you guys think of this fight. It's probably my favorite of what's going to be Season 3. So yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, let me know. Definitely subscribe if you're enjoying any of these videos. It means a lot. And thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.